namaste moment in the kitchen when I'm cooking. It is my meditation. I enjoy my wine. As Julia's child said, she liked to cook with it occasionally, or excuse me, yeah, cook with it occasionally as well. And my mantra is, yes, you can. I think that if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And today is going to be a different chicken noodle soup dish that I make for the girls. A lot of vegetables. You can see kind of my fun little rainbow. We've got a medley of carrots, so you can buy a medley of carrots that has an orange, a yellow, a purple carrot, and that's fun. I think that my girls love to eat carrots in general, just plain alone, but the more colors that you introduce to them, I think that it's more not only educational and they learn that this is from the ground up, but it gets them in the kitchen having fun with you. So we have a medley of carrots. We've got, I just kind of threw this together so you could see the different ingredients. We have a medley of potatoes, so we have a yellow, we have a red, and a purple. Those you can get in the same bag. So like the carrots, you can just grab a medley of potatoes and have a variety of different colors. We've got some fresh corn, some fresh English peas, which I used in the last show. I'm a huge fan of peas. My girls like to eat these plain as well. And then we have celery, and then we have some butternut squash. So I know this is a ton of vegetables. You don't have to use all of them, but I think your freshest versions that you can get from the store, this can kind of all go into one pot together, but I'm gonna do it very simply in a strategic lineup, in the hardest vegetables first to the softest, because we don't want them mushy. In addition to that, you could certainly buy a stock at the store, but I like making my own simple stock. People do not have time to take a whole chicken, most of the times, people don't have time, to put a whole chicken in a huge pot and actually make a stock broth. And this is my version of actually taking chicken thighs, getting those yummy browned bits in the pan, reducing that down with a little bit of wine, and then adding your vegetables. But in addition to that, we're not going to use noodles. We're going to use pearl couscous. This is kind of a pasta version of a couscous versus you can get the small, tinier couscous at the store. But pearl couscous will actually cook up into a larger, more plump version of the couscous. My girls love it. And so what I'm going to do is actually take these chicken thighs, cook them down, get those brown bits, remove them, add couscous to that, and start making a stock almost in a risotto style, where it's going to be soaking up those liquids, getting plump. We'll get those out of the pan and then start adding the vegetables. You could put this in a crock pot and let it sit all day, but the intention of this is, again, getting your kids in the kitchen, having fun, making something healthy, and learning how to do something in a different way. You could certainly, as I said, buy a stock at the store, or you could take ours and put those beautiful carrots and potatoes and celery, that mirepoix, the trio, into the pan and make a stock. But I don't have hours, and you don't want to watch me cook for hours. So I think we'll get started. But I'm going to drink a little Gibbs Sauvignon Blanc today, because why not? It's Thursday, and it's past noon. I've started early before. So we're going to start getting this hot, and I am going to use another grapeseed oil. This has a much higher heat component to it. Olive oil, certainly you can use as well, but this has a higher ratio, so you can actually get it hotter without burning the chicken or whatnot. So let's get that going. So I just wanted to lay these out for you to see the different medley of vegetables. You might want to buy these pre-chopped. If you don't want to take the time to chop these in your kitchen with the kids, you could go to Whole Foods, who's a partner of ours, and you could certainly get these pre-chopped. They do it for you. It's a little more expensive, but you'll have the same components together, just a lot easier. I'm going to remove these, and I think that this was just to be pretty for you to see the fun rainbow, but I'm going to put all these back in here. These are kind of all the harder vegetables that I will start with versus the corn, the celery, and the peas. I prefer to actually add towards the end because, as I said, I don't want them mushy. We have a poll on there to see what you'd like for me to cook next. What family-friendly dish? Do you want it Italian? Do you want it Mexican? Do you want it Indian? Or I think Chinese was the last one. So check off which one you'd prefer me to cook up, and I'll do that one next. And I will have the girls in here. They're going to be joining me at some point, but they're in school today, so I'll probably pick a day where they're in the kitchen with me cooking it up and helping Mommy. Okay, so we're going to have that on a medium heat. These are chicken thighs. You could do breast. I love chicken thighs because they have a lot more flavor to them. They have a little bit more fat, but this, to me, gives a little bit more richness. So this is going to be on medium. I'm just going to add these puppies right in here. And I wouldn't add too much oil. You could certainly use a light spray ingredient too, but I'm going to put all of these in here. And this recipe will be on our website. It will be under the video as well once we add it to our network, feastitforward.com. And I'm also adding last week's recipe as well to that, so you will be able to cook. Stick this back here. Let's turn this on high. Oh, grapeseed oil. Somebody asked where we can, ask your questions, please. We are here to answer them. Where you can buy grapeseed oil. Salute de Sante is a wonderful partner of ours. You can buy it at Whole Foods. You can also buy it here at the studio by Feast It Forward, or we do sell it online. This is an extra virgin cold-pressed grapeseed oil. It's really clean and light. I do use it for a lot of salad dressings too, because it's not as heavy. Sometimes olive oils have a bit thicker viscosity and it's a little too much. And I do have a little broth on the side. This is store-bought, and I might use a little bit of this. I always have that a little bit handy. I didn't chop the onions yet. Sorry if I cry. I might drink a little milk on the side. Regardless of how much I cook, I still cry a little bit, and they say if you drink a little milk or put bread in your mouth that it helps, and it doesn't. So if I'm crying, it's not because I'm sad. It's because I lamely still cry with onions. Two versions, completely up to you. White onion is a little bit stronger. Red onion is a little bit more mellow. If you want to add a little more flavor to that, or color, excuse me, you can use the purple. Last week, for those of you who watched the show, I talked about, my Grammy's spoon that before she passed away, rest in peace, Grandma, I took over a couple of her beautiful handmade and kitchen tools, and this will continue to be with me in the kitchen on every show because this is kind of my little go-to spoon. And I also talked about bacon fat. Whenever I cook bacon, whether it be for breakfast on a Sunday or, I don't know, bacon like the carbonara I made last week, I always keep that oil handy on the side. I don't use a ton of it because it definitely is high in fat, but it is rich in flavor, and I'll add a little bit to this dish when I'm actually sauteing the vegetables. And this, I would say, would take about an hour in total if you crank up the heat with the vegetables. I've decided to cut these on the smaller scale. If you put in the whole potatoes, obviously, it's going to take longer to cook. So I cut these down pretty small, so in the end, we will have a ready soup. Obviously, the longer it cooks, the more rich the flavors will be. So I'm going to let that keep going while I show you a few more things and continue to drink wine. And I hope those of you that aren't working, or working, I don't know, are enjoying a little bit. And again, ask questions. I'm not a trained chef. I am a cook, but I have been lucky enough to cook aside some remarkable chefs in our industry. Jacques Pepin, congratulations on your Emmy Achievement Award. The first time a culinary icon has received the Lifetime Achievement Award as an Emmy. You are an inspiration to all of us, and we look forward to celebrating with you next month in New York City. Okay, we're going to get that going. I'm going to talk about garlic while that's sitting. I want to get all of this liquid actually cooked down to where this chicken and the brown bits are really, greasy and good, and then I'll add in, as I said, some white wine. Garlic. Don't buy that pre-made garlic at the store. I'm sorry, it's horrible. Don't be that lazy. Maybe you're one of those people that has the little stair steps next to your bed for your dog to get up on it. I don't know. Call me the novice with garlic, but I think that you can easily buy a garlic head. If it's confusing or you're concerned about chopping it up, I'm going to show you a little trick. There's a couple tricks. So we've got some. But you just need to be careful with your knife. So if you're going to break this garlic head down, I'm not going to use a ton. My girls will not do this with me. You're going to get a big knife like this. And you're just going to press it down and you're going to hit it. Slap it. It will easily come off. You don't need to buy pre-made garlic at the store. And also, if you buy a big jar of that, half the time it's going to get moldy. You're not going to use it as quickly, and you're going to toss it. So get fresh garlic. If you want, you can cut off the end here so it comes off a little easier. Just pound it. And then within that, I think I'm probably going to use 3 here. When I cook, I do not use a recipe. When I'm cooking today for you, it's going to be different every time I cook it for my family. I'm going to honestly have to go back and write down all of the ingredients and the ratio of what I did, because when I'm in the kitchen, it's not like baking. Today's pie day, by the way. I would not bake you a great pie. Pie day, it's 3.14, but I would probably make you a horrible pie. However, cooking that does not require specific ingredients with baking soda, flour, egg ratio, I'm just going to throw everything together and make a little happy dish. So you've smashed that garlic. Here's my trick. You add some sea salt, some actually pretty thick granulated sea salt, not kosher, kosher's fine, not actual, the salt you use for baking, the iodinized, I can never say it. See, that's why I didn't go to culinary school, but I can cook you a damn good meal. Okay, so if you want to hold the knife here, if you're not comfortable with a big knife, and then what I do is after that salt, you're actually kind of breaking up the oils, and then I take it and then I smash it. And this does not take a lot of time, but again, smashing it, pulling off that peel, that salt will actually act as an abrasive, cutting through that garlic, and then we're just going to chop this up. Again, feel free to ask questions, see what you'd like me to cook up next week, whether it's Italian, Mexican, Chinese, or Indian. All right, you can start to see it reducing down, shrinking a little bit. I'm going to wait until all of this starts to dissipate and the liquid is actually cooking off, and then I'll turn that over. Okay, we've got the garlic to the side. I'm going to get this celery going. I also have some corn. You can see I just basically broke off the stalks, cut the sides, and what I'm going to do here is just take a sharp knife and go all the way down. I will be adding this along with the peas and the celery to the latter part of the dish because I do not want it gooey. I do not like mushy peas. My corn I actually like adding at the very last because I like that kind of crisp component, like you're adding herbs almost. So I've got this. And we also have 2 great chefs coming in for a live stream on the 23rd. We have the twin chefs who started off as little sweet, cutie, spatula-loving kiddos that cooked in the kitchen with their parents and watched a lot of food television. And this is Lily and Audrey, the twin chefs. They'll be here on the 23rd. For those of you with kids that want to meet and your children love to cook in the kitchen like my girls do and are inspired by young kids who've made it this far, that this book was an acclaimed book via the San Francisco Chronicle. They have a very successful blog on thetwinchefs.com. So they'll be here from 2 to 4 on Saturday, the 23rd. So come to the studio, meet them. You can actually hang out with us while I'm cooking live with them. This is Lily and Audrey, twin chefs. We look forward to cooking with you. Sandra Bernstein from The Girl and the Fig will be here next Tuesday for our initial cookbook club. And of course, Rick Moonin, alongside a multitude of incredible chefs and musicians, will be joining us, and we're about to release that calendar. Okay, that's getting close. I'm going to get all of this ready. And be sure to wash that celery. I actually like to keep the, I don't even know what you call it, honestly, the celery herbs, the goodness in the middle, the heart. I like to keep that in the dish. I would not get rid of it. And so I think if I had to guess, I'm probably using about 2 cups of butternut squash, 2 cups of a potato medley, 2 cups of mixed carrots, probably about the same 2 cups of celery, so maybe we call this the 2-cup vegetable medley chicken soup. I don't know, it's a long, tell me what name you want me to call it, I don't know. Corn, peas, so it's kind of like a 2-cup ratio. I'll do the onion in a moment too. So you can see this is cooking down. It's getting close. Monogram has powered our whole entire kitchen. They have an array of appliances in here. We have our induction burner. We have a awesome pizza oven that is the first indoor pizza oven that I look forward to using. It cooks a pizza in 2 minutes. It gets to about 750 degrees. Of course, we have our gas burner back here, but this is great because, especially cooking with the kids, you know, Quinn and Harlow are used to me saying hot, don't touch, but at the same time, accidents do happen. So the induction burner is nice because even though it will be hot when you pull it off, it'll talk to you and say, it's hot, don't touch. All right, so this is getting close. And I'm not going to cook this all the way through. I'm actually just going to get this brown goodness going and then end up letting it sit and kind of soak in all those juices off the burner while I get everything else going. All right, while that goes, let's get the onion going. Put this off to the side. And let me know what other dishes you, besides our, I think I'm going to go with yellow, by the way. Onion, white onion, yellow onion. What other dishes you'd like to see. I'm not just going to stick to dinner. I've got some awesome breakfast dishes that I like to do with the kids. You know, separate from the kids, I'm also going to do some date night dishes, you know, get a sitter and cook together in the kitchen. So let me know if there's any certain dishes that you feel may be threatened by or you just want to see me cook. All right, I've got a pretty significant onion. I don't think all kids like onion, but I think that if you cook it down enough and it's not too potent, that you're fine. So I'll probably end up using I don't know, about half of this. And I think this kind of risotto concept and what I'm going to do next is a fun way to integrate a different pasta, this being couscous, and kind of soak through. And again, I'll let this sit on the pot for a little while and cook, but relatively short being in the kitchen and cooking with the kids. No, I don't have perfect knife skills. You know, everybody, all moms and dads that cook out there, if you're not a trained chef, you make do, and it doesn't, unless I'm actually cooking with Jacques or Rick in the kitchen, I really don't care what this looks like in the end result. I'm trying to teach you folks to actually get in the kitchen with the kids and not make a perfect onion, which I'm not crying, by the way. I am shockingly not crying. Okay. This is getting close. So you see all this yummy brown bits there? That's what I'm going for. I'm going to end up using a little more white wine in there, but I gotta have a little more first too. All right, let's set this here. This is what I want to achieve, this tasty goodness. I'll end up taking this off and then letting it sit and then add in my next components. And then when this is actually in that soup pot, it will be continuing to cook. I'm obviously not going to be serving raw chicken. We don't want that. Okay. Okay, we don't need it completely dark on all sides here. Ooh, it's spitting and talking to me, but that's what I want. I want it hot. All right, you can always use more chicken, but I think considering all the vegetables, we don't need a crazy amount. And then what I'm going to do here is add in the onion. I would say of all items in this dish, it's going to be this couscous that's going to take a little bit longer. But through the magic of live stream, since you're not, quote, tasting it with me, I will take you through the dish and then show you what the, quote, end result will be. So I'm going to kind of soak up. You see that yummy brown bits in there? That's what I want to get going. And I'm going to get this all soaked up here, and then I'm going to add a little white wine. And don't worry, it cooks off. It's not a concern for the kiddos. But it smells awesome. I'm going to turn this up. This is one thing I do, actually, is clean while I'm cooking. I think some people end up just making a mess, and then at the end, they're like, I don't want to cook, it's just a mess. Well, clean a little bit along the way. All right, let's turn this up. All right, ooh, I love onions, honestly. I knew somebody that ate an onion raw like an apple. Much that they would just peel off the outer layer and then eat the onions. So that's starting to get translucent. We're going to take this pearl couscous, and for those of you who have made a risotto before, in some recipes it calls for taking that arborio rice and browning it a little bit, getting that toast, and then adding the liquid slowly, slowly, slowly. So what I'm going to be doing here is kind of making a faux stock in my version. Instead of going and getting a bunch of different stock at the store, I'm going to kind of take that juicy goodness from the chicken. As it's sitting, you're going to see those juices kind of spill out a little bit, and as I cut it up and add it to the dish, it's going to help create a little more richness to the broth. But I'm using all this tastiness with the onions, adding this, adding a little liquid and some vegetable bouillon here. And that's my version of the stock versus adding a bunch of different stock at the store, or, like I said earlier, in making a from-the-scratch stock, which takes, obviously, quite a bit of time. So, let's see. This will, of course, multiply. So I don't know, I guess I used about a cup and a half. I'll have to remember that. This is where I actually go back to what I was doing, how much I was using. And I probably should have added the garlic in prior to doing that, but I'm going to add that now. So. All right, we're going to toast this off a little bit. And like a risotto, some of you might be thinking, oh, this takes too long to actually cook with the kids in the kitchen. My show is intended for them to be a part of the process. I realize it's not realistic with everything going on in our lives to get home and do this every night. That's not what I'm saying. There's homework, there's cleaning, there's brushing teeth, there's chores in the house, but these are dishes that are fun to get them to like vegetables, to have something healthy, to be a part as a family around the table. So, you know, this is not something that I'm asking you to do every single night, although I do make it a point when I'm cooking pretty much, I would say, 5 nights out of the week with my girls to have them help me, regardless of what it is. If it's, you know, I don't want to be opening a canned soup. This is kind of my version of creating a fun soup that they'll love, to get them to eat vegetables, to enjoy chicken. You don't even have to add the chicken. If you want to make it a vegetarian dish, that's fine too. All right, you can hear that crackling a little bit. I'm going to add some white wine to cook that off, and that's going to get the rest, it's going to actually get the rest of that chicken browned bits in there. Turn this up. All right, this is where the most time is going to take, but what I'm going to do is get this going, move it up while it cooks, and start with the vegetables. See, it's talking to me. It's like, oh, there's no pot here. Come on, go. Yes, I know you're there. You don't like that. All right, this is the one thing about induction. Sometimes it says induction suitable. Why aren't you going on? Here. All right, let's try you. There we go. All right, I'm just gonna, I think that the pots are too close here. Okay, so I'm gonna let that keep going, and I'm gonna continue to add, this will end up going in here, but I'm gonna continue to add water and wine to this, just to start cooking that couscous. Here's where we introduce that tasty bacon fat that I always have handy in the kitchen. You don't have to use it in this dish, but I love the taste of rich bacon. I don't need to add a lot of it, but it actually kind of helps on the back end to give it a little more flavor. So we're heating that up. This just sits in my kitchen, and I continually add to it. It's nearly the same as adding olive oil, but a little more flavor. All right, so I'm just going to add like 2 tablespoons here. Get that going. Let's put this aside. And this is where I'm going to start with the veggies. Let's turn this on high. And I could add a little more wine to this. We don't want it to get dry. And I can add a little water to this, I think, in the end result and seeing, what type of additional herbs and flavoring I need. I don't want to add too much salt or pepper to this until the end. And you're going to get a lot from the chicken as well. Okay, that bacon smells awesome. I'm going to turn this on high. And this is when we're going to add the potato. Hey, buddy. The potato medley, the carrot medley, the butternut squash. You don't need to add butternut squash. You could add what other vegetables you want to this. I'm just going to kind of give you the main ingredients, and certainly you could add zucchini towards the end. You could take out that butternut squash. Maybe you don't like potato, carrot, but this is what I like in it. And this gets your kids eating a lot of vegetables. All right, well that's going. Let's cut down the rest of this corn. You could add the celery now, but I like to add it towards the end because I do like that little crispness, like I said, with the peas and the corn. So let's cut the rest of this corn. All right, do we have any people letting us know what cuisine we want to cook next week?
Someone asked, I never cook with wine. Is it necessary, or will water taste just as good?
Yeah, the question was, I never cook with wine. Can I use water? Will it be just as good? If you don't drink, if you don't drink wine or you don't drink in general, you don't need to use this. You could use a broth or a water, but the alcohol component in when you're breaking down those bits and that, as I call it, the goodness in the chicken, it will basically cook off all of that, tastiness off of the pan. Water won't do as great a job, but it will do the trick. This just makes it a little richer, and then the alcohol burns off. But if you do have, I always drink what I'm cooking with. I never cook with crappy wine, and I don't drink crappy wine either. But it's always important, I think, that you cook with a good wine. But certainly for those of you who don't drink or you don't cook with wine, or no, it's not a necessity, and you're going to get enough flavors from this. And I could just be using water to this, but it's here and it's easy. And let's see. So you can see, yeah, so it's just starting to soak up a little bit. I like this weekly thing because then my girls can reap the benefits of what I'm cooking today. All right, so this is on high. We have all of the kind of harder vegetables together in the dish. I'm not going to add any salt or pepper to this quite yet because I did add the bacon fat, which is salty enough. I'm going to set this aside. I do have a little Parmesan Reggiano right here, which I like to add a little bit to at the end. This is going to be a much thicker soup than your standard chicken noodle that has some chicken and some carrot and some celery. This is, again, my version of a vegetable chicken medley, but with a pearl couscous that's going to thicken it up a little bit. And then here's the chicken. You can see it's not cooked all the way through. I'm not serving it raw. It's gonna cook in here, but all of these juices, it's kind of gonna be part of our broth, right? I mean, I'm adding from the bacon to this to the couscous here. It's gonna make a rich broth as it is. And yes, we will be, per that question earlier, we will use water into this dish as well. So this is cooking off. I would say, I'm not going to be filming this entire time, but I want to take you through the components, and then this will sit for probably another 30 minutes. As I expressed, I cut these in small pieces. If I were chopping them in larger chunks, like when you're making a stew in the crock pot, that's going to take a lot more time because they're larger pieces to cook through. But the butternut squash, the potato, the carrot, all are fairly small, and so those are going to cook through a lot faster. And you can see this couscous is starting to plump up a little bit. This doesn't need to be cooked through all the way, but I'm introducing the couscous to that wine and to the little bits of chicken that I cooked in earlier to kind of take away from the pan and enrich the dish and make its own broth. Okay, let that go a second, wash my hands. Always teaching the kiddos to wash their hands, especially when you're touching raw chicken or really just being clean in general. It's looking good. Anybody local in town today, we have the kickoff to our open mic night, which is every Thursday, but the second Thursday of the month is the West Coast Songwriters installation, and so through the end of the year there will be a panel of judges actually listening to these incredible musicians with their written songs, original songs, and I believe that there's a group flying in early next year to finish up the competition. So every Thursday from 6:30 to 9 we have open mic night, but the second Thursday of the month is the West Coast Songwriters. So downstairs will be quite packed with musicians and people enjoying wine. All right, so if you can see, don't worry, nothing's on fire. Like here, that high heat and that bacon, see? Ooh, that's good. So that potato is crisping up. You're not going to find this in a Campbell's soup can, sorry, but I'd much prefer this. Okay, that's starting to break down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is actually introduce the couscous. All right, turn this off. You can see that couscous. And for those of you just tuning in, this is kind of my spin and version on a chicken noodle soup, but a vegetable medley with kind of your own stock. My take on a quick stock versus buying store-bought, to actually taking the time to put the mirepoix or the trio of vegetables together with a raw rotisserie chicken or whatever it may be in the pot. So I've got fresh vegetables, whatever you want from the store, but in here we have lots of potato medley, carrot medley, so it's almost a rainbow of flavors for your kids. I think the more that you introduce them to fresh products and vegetables, and really, you know, an array of colors, they're going to be more interested in wanting to actually be a part of the discussion. Okay, so that's cooking down. Now is when I'm going to add all of this. It would have been in a bowl, but I wanted you to see how pretty this mix of veggies is. So we've got fresh corn. I have a third one over here, but I think that I'll just go with 3, so I'll have to note that. All right. So fresh corn, I think it was 3 ears, cut right off the stalk. I've got celery, which is, you know, this was pretty massive, but I think I got maybe half of it with the innards, which is I like to call kind of the herb core. And then we have the fresh English peas. I'm a huge fan of these. I used these last week in the show, and they're just plump and crisp. I mean, look at that. I don't know how, it's pretty. There's a lot going on in there. I get it. It's kind of like my head. It's a little too much. All right. This is when I'm going to start adding some water and this vegetable bouillon. And you could really, once this cooks through and I start introducing a little more liquid, you could serve this as kind of a rice dish, a couscous dish, but you know, with the more liquid I'm adding to it and making a soup. I mean, I didn't even think about that. We could just serve it this way. Okay, so yes, you can. I'm going to move you. I'm going to take the chicken, and that's on let's say a pretty high heat. I want to keep this. This is what I was talking about. This rich goodness. Okay. After that sits, and it's the same thing when you're cooking a beef on the grill. If you're doing a tri-tip or a steak, you want to let that meat, that protein sit. The chicken, the lamb, whatever it may be, protein-wise, to sit a little bit and actually soak in its own juices. That's going to achieve a much richer taste. It's also, the quicker you cut it, it's going to dry out faster. And also, as I said, you know, this is partially raw. I'm going to be cooking the rest of it off in the pot, but all of that yummy liquid and flavor is going to add to the profile of the dish. And you can see we kind of seared that off, right? Okay, well, I'm going to wash my hands in a minute, so I may as well. However big you'd like this, however small you'd like this, you know, actually I'm going to wash because it's so. With my 2-year-old, she certainly is capable of eating bigger chunks now, but if you have little kiddos, you can chop this up pretty fine, however you want. You know, it's cooked pretty good through, but this is where it's going to start cooking off fully in the pot. Just going to chop through this. And I always, and I think I said this in the last show, regardless of what the dish calls for, I always cook a heck of a lot more protein than it calls for because I have it extra in the fridge for leftovers. You know, whether I'm putting it in my kids' lunch the following day. See, this is where you can see it's a little tough to cut because it's going to be cooking off the rest of it in the actual soup. So don't worry if it's raw. This is all going to be cooking up together. So sorry, back to the additional protein. I always have extra on hand because I will end up using it. I didn't do it today because otherwise, I don't know, I guess I could have, but I like having something extra on hand because then I can just use it for a following dish. And this doesn't need to be pretty. This does not need to be pretty. You can use as little, as much as you want. But I love chicken thigh. There's so much flavor to it. I know that there is a little bit more fat to it, but you're getting the same protein. And for those of you that are vegetarian, certainly could do the same ingredients that I just did, sans the chicken. Okay, this is starting to get super happy. wish you could smell it. Just like Ryan at Benessery asking, smell-o-vision. All right, officially wash. Any questions you have, please ask. Okay, so we're gonna wipe this off. I love, Analon is our cookware sponsor, but they also have some really badass knives. And they're very sharp, and I've learned the hard way, so pay attention or they can get you. All right. It doesn't look pretty, but this is what happens in the kitchen. This is not meant to be a beauty shoot. Okay, here we go. And you can, by stirring this, I can tell it's getting brown at the bottom here. It's all sitting in this happy pot. This chicken is going to start cooking. You can see the butternut squash is actually starting to get a little translucent. The peas are going to retain that crunch. The celery is going to start cooking off. The carrots, the potato. And just like I said, you could certainly just serve it like this, but I'm going to be adding liquid to this to make it a hearty soup. And I realize that we have sprung forward, but there are still chilly nights that require a little cozy meal around the table. And like I said, I'm going to be doing breakfast dishes, lunch dishes. My girls and I might be doing a craft or two coming in. I'm going to start off with my own kind of time alone for the show, and then I'll start introducing Harlow and Quinn. I think Harlow might be watching with Pop Pop, so if you are, hi. Okay, that's going to start going down. So what I'm going to do is actually take this just so I can remember how much I'm using. I didn't use, I think I used about a cup and a half of the Cous Cous. This is why, because I never know how much I am using. Okay, here's the vegetable bouillon. There's a multitude of options out there. There's a actual stock, right, that you can buy at the store, which is this. There's the better than bouillon, which comes in a jar, which is a paste. Then there's kind of the bouillon cubes, which is what I used. And so I'm going to get water, and then I'm going to slowly start introducing it to this. So this is getting super close. I'd say I've only been streaming for about 45 minutes, and this is probably only 30 minutes away from being done. Now, of course, the longer it sits and gets all happy in that spa together, it's going to have a little more rich flavor. So I would not serve this immediately today, right now, but again, you can do this at home, have this sit on the pot a little bit longer, or serve it to the kids. Some kids won't really know the difference. But I think this is a very simple dish if you have all the components ready in advance. As I said, I'm not asking for you to do this every single night in the kitchen with your kids, but I think it is extremely important to introduce them to produce, to proper products, to realizing, and it baffles my mind, that so many kids think that you just purchase items off the shelf or in the can and it's served on a plate. No. One of our shows that we are beginning to produce with Chef Rick Moonen, who's a partner and our chef advocate, is Can I Eat This? From the shelf back to the source. It's important to know about a product in the ground, in the root, to the source itself, to the kitchen table, because, you know, children in their schools today are not being introduced to the healthiest of meals. And I've seen that with my daughter Quinn at her school, kids with, you know, just Cheeto packs and a bunch of crap, really. I think that if you take them to the grocery store, and I know some parents are saying right now, oh my God, my kids act out at the grocery store. Well, they won't if you actually take them to respect the grocery store. And, you know, my children have meltdowns in the store too. But if you take the time to introduce them, I know I have friends that actually look forward to going to the grocery store alone. I rarely go to the grocery store alone. I take the girls. Yesterday, I was at the grocery store with Harlow. She had her own little cart and was taking what I was giving her and putting it in there, and I was saying, Mommy is making soup, you know, soup. That's important. And then when you're back in the kitchen and you're cooking together, it's family time, and that's what family style is about. It's conscious cooking. It's being together. It's creating dishes that, you know, not always are healthy. This is pretty damn healthy, but there's bacon fat in it. Of course, I'm not going to be cooking raw ingredients. There are definitely plant-based diets out there too, but this is pretty darn healthy for a kid out there to have. You've got, you know, 6 different vegetables. You have chicken. Don't need to add the chicken. You've got Cous Cous, which is a really enriched, nice grain. You could use a pasta if you wanted, but this is my version of a chicken, quote, noodle soup. Okay, so I have the bouillon. So my point is, get your kids to the grocery store, get them in the kitchen. Sure, I order pizza. I definitely get Chinese takeout, absolutely. I am not super mom, but moms, dads out there, get to the grocery store, take them, introduce them to products, to produce. Have fun in the kitchen with them. Don't give them this knife, but introduce them how to cook appropriately. Okay, sink. And I will write this down because I am not quite sure how much I'll be using, but what I'll probably do here is add to this. All right, we're adding some water to that. And I'm turning this on a little bit higher than I typically would, probably just to kind of speed things up with you folks watching. So busy, I'm not drinking as much as I would. Okay. All right. And you can see that rich color coming through. So we have this bouillon. I typically would actually heat this up. I probably should have done that. This is, you can see it's thickening. It should actually be a hot liquid, but it's going to end up melting in the soup regardless. But what you don't want to do is actually toss this in there and not stir it up. See, it's coagulating because I put cold and I should have put hot, but you won't know in the end result when it actually cooks off. So there's about 2 bouillon cubes, and then I've added so far a 1.5 cups of water. So just ensure that when you're adding that bouillon that it ends up actually melting, because the last thing you want is to serve this and then all of a sudden somebody gets a big chunk of salt, and yeah, you don't want that. Okay, so this is getting happy. So this is when things are just starting to cook off. I think it looks like the butternut squash is nearly done. The carrots are nearly done. The potatoes need a little bit more time. The juice from that chicken is cooking. Again, you could put this in the crock pot, but the intention is getting everybody in the kitchen and having fun and building a flavor profile on this. So you can take my same ingredients and apply it to a crock pot, but that's not what this show is about. Okay, we're going to add a little more water so you can see, just to give you a little, I mean, look at that pretty color. We don't need to get stock from the store. You can, but I think in using the chicken and a little bit of the bouillon and the rich flavors from the vegetables, you can get this beautiful color here. Okay. And up to you, adding how much water you want. If you want to make it a little less liquidy, a little more of a thicker soup, don't add as much water, but I don't know, that was probably 2 cups, so 4. We're probably at 5.5, 6 cups of water. And this is where I would just let this sit for a little bit, continue to heat, be happy, decide if I want to add a little pepper, if I want to add a little salt. I think we're good on the bouillon. I haven't even tasted this, which I'm about to, because I'm waiting for that chicken to be completely, in fact, I know, I think I want to invent a pot that's like clear so a camera like this can see what's going on, because, you know, right now, it doesn't know, but here, camera, if you can see this, and I'll end up putting it back on, but you can see all of that beautiful vegetables. I think I've pretty much added everything that I'd like. And once this chicken cooks off a little bit more than I will taste this, but I'm going to turn it back on high. I'm going to get a bowl ready here. Let's see. All right, so I've got just a couple wines I wanted to talk about. Ooh, got food on me. I typically do have food on me at some point. As I said, I opened the Gibbs Sauvignon Blanc earlier, the Setna Vineyard up in St. Helena. Really beautiful, incredible price point, over-delivers, as well as the BY's Wisdom. This is a gorgeous blend from our partners in Sonoma, and you retain a lot of wisdom if you drink some of this, and especially when you drink a full bottle. So I'll probably end up opening that once I invite some friends over to eat some of this. Pour myself a little of that. Set this to the side. Let's check on this and get a ladle. So yeah, I don't know if that camera can catch that, but you'll see it in just a moment. So I would typically let this sit for another 40 minutes or so, just to get a little more happy. But for a kid right now, I think that they would enjoy it, so I don't think it's a concern. So you can see, let me just show you how happy this is. So there's a lot, there's a lot in here, but it's pretty darn healthy. You've got the carrot, the butternut squash, the potato, the peas, the corn, the celery, the chicken, the couscous. So for the average kid at the moment, super happy. Most parents would love this right now. I'm going to turn this down and just let it sit, but get a little dish going for you guys. Some kids don't like butternut squash. I'm a fan. I also like yams, so I'm going to let that sit, but I just kind of want to give you the end result here. Yummy Parmesan. I'm a cheese fiend. My kids love cheese too. And let's see. I didn't plan for a big spoon, so I'll use Grandma's spoon here. Super tasty, rich flavors. Honestly, I'm not going to add any salt or pepper to this. And in the ingredients, and when I write this on the video and the actual blog, is I think I added about 6 cups of water, but completely up to you. Add as much or as little as you'd like. Add a multitude of different vegetables, whatever's in season or whatever your kids like. But I think at the beginning of the show, as I showed this medley of a rainbow of flavors, to get them to understand that things don't come from a can, that they do come from the ground up, and that, conscious cooking and entertaining with your family is very important. So cheers to family style. I look forward to the next week with you folks. Oh, excuse me. Let me know. Do you want chicken, Chinese food next week? Do you want like an Indian curry? Do you want me to make like a tamale dish? No, not tamale. I don't think I've done a tamale, so don't call me out on that. Like an enchilada dish. I make a really damn good enchilada pie. Or Italian. I mean, throw something at me. I am having fun here. I'm not a formally trained chef. I am a cook. I'm a mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mompreneur. And I'm having a super good time at this. I hope that you visit the Studio by Feast at 4 here in downtown Napa. Go to our event page, see what chefs and musicians and A-listers and influencers and friends are coming in to visit us, and get your kids in the kitchen, and cheers to feasting forward.